Yo boys, back with another video. Today we're going to be doing the good old-fashioned updated tier list, and it is actually 10:47 a.m. I just got finished with my other video, the threes video, at around 6 or 7, but I decided just to do this because I'm not really tired, and I have the time now, so I might as well just voice over. By the time you guys are seeing this, it'll be tomorrow night, but I am recording it on the 17th, or but this is updated, so this is everything we've known so far. So instead of it being, oh well, we don't know how it's gonna be, we know what it's gonna be like, and we know what's gonna, how it's gonna go. So first off, we're gonna start with warlocks, and I'm pretty sure. I think the reason a lot of people don't know how good a class is mainly because the melee is absolutely dumpster. So this is the overall spec. So this is not just a specific. This is not like if it's bad in solo shuffle, but then it's good in threes. It's overall. So for casting wise, if you're looking to play a caster, I think the best option is one of the three lock specs is 100%. Maybe Ellie is probably just as good, or like MM, obviously. But honestly, I'm gonna start with Demo. So Demo is an S tier caster spec. It's very, easy to play if you know how to just build up your pets into a big, demonic or tyrant, whatever. So it's very good once you get all that stuff rolling, unhealable damage, and on top of that, you actually get pretty good, decent damage. Like you get consistent damage on top of huge burst. So for a caster wise, it's definitely an S tier caster. It may be high A, but for the purpose of it being good overall, I'm going to put it in the S tier. Destro is another S tier caster, and the reason is it's 400k, 3 to 450k bolts. One precog, you pretty much can close out a game really quick, and your instant cast hit insanely hard. They're hitting for like 100k to like 150, or maybe like 70 to 150k a pop, and you have four of them, and they're always on. Like you can always just click them. So if you are getting focused, you can just go for precog kills bolts, or you can just instant cast them to death. And with your infernal doing unhealable damage, you also have that. So it's another S tier spec. These are really good. I would definitely recommend playing them if you're looking to play a caster. Affliction Warlock is another easy spec that's actually insanely good, surprisingly. All specs of S tier. Now you could argue that maybe Affliction is maybe A tier, but if you're playing a real, so this is like if you were to play a real comp or in general, all of it together, I think all lock specs are S tier. They're very good. I don't think they can get any better. Like once DHs and certain classes gets nerfed, this will definitely be one of the best classes, if not the best. So I'm gonna get put all three. We can argue about maybe it could be A, but I guarantee these are just really good. Now I wish I had an S plus tier because obviously there's certain classes right now that are just insanely overtuned. So maybe for the purpose of this video, I'm gonna put Affliction down at A tier because I mean if you think about it, is Affliction really as good as an MM Hunter or a DH? I just don't know about that. Like, it's good, don't get me wrong, but I don't think it's that good. Now, Destro is definitely up there. Unbelievable damage, and same thing with Demo. These are just unbelievable amount of damage, and people don't recognize it now because there's other classes that are just maybe a little bit better, but it is very, very, it's up there. It's definitely an S tier caster, 100%. I will stand on that all day, every day. So now we're going to go with Hunter, MM, S tier. We all know this. Unhealable burst damage, unhealable consistent damage. Mainly it's its burst, but definitely a great spec to play, and it's also really easy. BM is another S tier spec, I think. I'm going to put it as S tier. People are saying it's bugged right now, but they have unlimited burst damage. Kill command hitting for like 30 to 40% of your HP non-stop, consistently. Ridiculous amount of damage. Every BM that I've fought is just they melt. You know, they just do so much unhealable damage for no reason, just consistently, even off burst. So it's definitely an S tier spec. Survival is probably going to be an A tier. If you play good as in serve and you know how to like you play it like an outlaw rogue and you're like just AoEing people down, it's pretty good. But solo wise, it's not the best. You need people that can stack up. Maybe like in threes and solo shuffle, it's probably a little bit better. But in general, it's not as good as a BM or an MM. So I'm gonna keep that there, and that's going to be the Hunter. So now we're gonna go with Mage. Arcane is still a really bad spec. However, I'm gonna put it as a B tier. I still think it's playable. It's not the best. It's not the worst. I put it last time in C tier, but I don't think anything's gonna be in C tier. I'm gonna try to keep it, as high as I can without it being, because it's playable. You can still win as it, but it's going to be a very hard time. It's not going to be a fun. It's a fun spec to play, but just when you realize that if they just use their one CD on all your CDs, it's not going to do much. So not a very good spec. Frost Mage is definitely an A tier. I don't know where this was last time, but I kind of underestimated. Ring of Frost though does a lot of damage. You have a lot of burst potential, and it might not be as much as a Destro or an MM, but it's definitely up there. It definitely does a good amount of damage. It may be high B, but I'm going to put it as A tier because a good Frost Mage can still do a lot of damage. You have two blocks, you have a lot of utility with that. So, pretty much I'm going to open this, make sure my mic's on. So yeah, that's Frost Mage. Fire Mage is another A tier. It could even, nah, I wouldn't even put it as tier. The reason Fire Mage, if you kept the damage and you didn't have to play Glass Cannon, it would probably be S tier. But the fact that it dies in less than two goes, so you basically have 40 seconds every game to win and close out a game, or else you're kind of just toaster oven. So not a very good spec. You have the damage. If you play Rogue Mage, great, it can work. But overall, it's not the best. It's an A tier spec, so it's not like it's unplayable. It's just not as good as an S tier. That's more of like the best of the best. So, and then we have Warrior. Warrior is another class that is going to be at the same spot as it was. Arms Warrior has a lot of consistent damage, and its burst damage is pretty disgusting. On top of that, you're getting huge MS. You know, you're getting Mortal Strikes. You're getting a perma root whenever you Blade Storm, or there's another CD that just roots everybody in place. So for Wrestler Druids, it's perfect. If you charge at a Wrestler Druid, Blade Storm while you're popping every CD, he's not going to be able to just shift out and get away because it perma roots. Fury Warrior, another A tier, very good consistent damage. I think it needs a little bit more. I don't know if it's its 2 set or its 4 set, but it's going to be doing a lot of damage. Right now, I think it's at A tier, but it could very well be at S tier soon enough. And by the way, we don't have full gear yet, so maybe Sub Rogue. I think a lot of people are waiting to play Sub Rogue until we have max gear. That means we can get full mastery and then try it out. Because right now, the only viable Sub Rogue build is a one-shot build, and it can work versus glassy things, so like Feral Druids, DHs, but it's very difficult. If they just play good and they use on your blade, you're usually not going to be able to win, unless you're with a mage, obviously. But healer rogue-wise is not the best. It's definitely not as good as, the current meta, and I say the current meta as the best. Anything S tier as the meta. It doesn't matter if they're A tier or anything else. If they're S, they're the meta. Simple as it gets. So, Fury Warrior, we're just going to put tank at D tier. So now we're going to go with Rogue, and this is a little bit of, it's questionable. So I do not think Rogue is definitely no longer an S tier spec. It was before for some reason. I don't know if it was its mastery or what happened, but apparently it's like all of a sudden your damage is cut in like so many parts. You used to be able to like kill somebody in your burst kidney. Now, unless you have a teammate, it's not anywhere close to that anymore. Unless you get like huge crits, even then you're not even getting them to like 40%. So Sub Rogues, it's good. It's really good with the mage, but and maybe in threes and solo shuffle for stunning. You're basically a stun bot, but it's still not terrible. Assassination, another spec that is probably an A tier, and the reason it's not an S tier, it's the same problem as every other non-meta spec. It just can't compete with something like a BM or a Arms Warrior. It just doesn't. You have the damage, you're just a dampener. Dampening classes in this meta is really bad because when warriors aren't considered dampen, it's really bad. Cause like if this was dampen and you went to like 60% damp, then assassination would be god tier. You have the damage, you have the shivs. The problem is they just don't have any burst damage. Like if you just use one CD on every CD, you're fine usually. So it's not really like it's just not an S tier spec, simple. But Outlaw Rogue, another spec where I've actually tried this out, and unless you can stack people up, it's again an A tier spec. These used to be all S tier, But now that, we have the new gear, it feels like everything just feels 10 times tankier. And now that every healer can just instantly heal all of your damage, it's like, you know, you don't have the damage output. I mean, if it was a damp season, all these would be pretty good, except probably sub, because sub's not a dampener. It's a not, but these could very well become S tier, so don't give up on sub or anything else. Just reroll to like a DH, a warrior, one of these classes, and you'll actually have fun. I've been playing my DH, and I've been having 10 times the more fun than I have on any rogue spec. It's a lot more fun, so trust me, you don't have to, you can still get your Volt, but just log off, make something else, and have fun, because, it is what it is. That's just how the game is right now, unfortunately. Now we're going to go with Druid. Druid is an A tier. I actually underestimated this class. It does a lot of AoE damage. It could be very well S tier coming up soon. It does a lot of damage. You have a lot of CC. Now you don't have much defensively. Your heals don't really do much, but it is very well a tier spec. If you've seen maybe a good Boomy play, you can understand where I'm coming from. They definitely do a lot of damage, way more damage than I thought they did, but they're up there in them. They might not have a super amount of burst damage, but their overall damage is like an Affliction Warlock. It does a lot of damage. So, Feral Druid, I actually underestimated Feral too. Another A tier spec, maybe even becoming a S tier. If you guys haven't seen, these guys' bites are insanely broken. They get these stacks to like 3 stacks, and every bite hits for an immense amount. Like literally like 100 to 50 on their burst, and 2 bites really will like 2 or 3 shots you literally. It's an insane class if you know how to play it. If you run the right build and you get your bites up, and then you pop your burst after you get bites or your procs. Basically like Convoke back in Shadowlands where you had to get your 2 stacks and then you Convoked. That's how it is, except you're just perma biting. So it's no longer it's a bleed spec, but it's also just an insane burst damage spec. So definitely a good class to try out if you're trying to just do some max dam. We're gonna put tank at the bottom. Next spec here, we're gonna go with Shaman. Ellie Shaman, another easy class to play. All you're doing is instant cast damage, and then on top of that, your all fields are pretty good. You have decent utility, ground, wall, underground, and you have kick, you have far range kick, you have hex, or lasso. You have a decent amount of stuff. You have your totems to help you get away. Very easy class once you get to know how to play it. It's just a bunch of instacast, lava burst, earth shock, and then you're just firing up everybody for procs. So definitely a fun spec. I definitely try it out. You probably would have some fun with it. Enhancement Shaman, I put at B tier. Nobody's really playing this mainly because enhancements is a proc one shot type, and unless it has to be like a sub rogue kind of like it needs to have when it clicks all of its CDs, it needs to like kill somebody in between that 1 to 4 second gap, and it's not happening right now, so it's pretty much unplayable. It's still playable, obviously. The best of the best can make it work with maybe if you're playing like a threes match or something. It could still work possibly, but overall it's not very good. I wouldn't really recommend it at the moment. And now we're gonna go with Windwalker. Windwalker is an A tier. Definitely has a lot of damage, has a lot of potential. Now you do have to be some type. You have to play defensively some type, of way. If you're playing bad and you're just getting one shot without clicking buttons, or you're clicking too many buttons on a non-burst go, it's not gonna go very well for you. But in general, it's definitely a high burst class. It's like Sub Rogue, except yeah, it's pretty much like Sub Rogue. You have Incap, you have Stun, and you have your big burst. So a lot of A tiers here, very good. And don't get me wrong, you could still play A tier and make it work. So you could play any of these classes and still play the game. You're just gonna get outclassed, and that's fine. Sometimes you just get outclassed, but if you're not trying to get outclassed, I would recommend all the S tiers. That's pretty much what you want to play at the moment. But there's that. Windwalker, Mistweaver. I still think Mistweaver, Fistweaver, non-Fistweaver. If you're a good Mistweaver, it's an S tier healer. It's definitely one of the best healers. I think Resto Shaman, Resto Druid, and Mistweaver are the top 3. Priest may be in there, because you get big fat damage with Priest. The problem is um, you know, Resto Druid, Mistweavers will just absolutely farm you, like if they're good, obviously. Because like you just Priest is not dampen, especially disc. You need to win really quick. Because once you get over like 40 damp, your shields start to do nothing, and then every other healer can heal to like 70% damp, no problem. So you're gonna have a good time on Mistweaver if you'd like to try that out. Next, we're gonna go with the we're gonna put tank at the bottom here. Actually, let's put all the tanks real quick. Okay, so next class we're gonna be going with the one and only the DH. We all know an S tier spec, if not the best class in the game. So I would definitely recommend it. I'm trying it out. I've been having fun. Um, I'm already like 2050 MMR. Oh my god, I'm only like 1200 CR. Literally just doing non-stop 100k burst. There's a certain build you can run. I'll have it in the description for anyone wanting to play DH. A lot of people don't even know where to find the build, but I will link it if anyone's playing a DH or wants to try a DH in the future. I'll link a build, and or I can just link. You can just check my PvP, check it out for yourself. Very fun. I might make a guide on this. You guys might want to watch it. I'll have some solo. I'll probably just make a guide because everyone's going to be swapping to it because it's very fun. Same thing with all the other S tier specs. But next class, Unholy DK. Honestly, the real question is it S tier? It does. I'm gonna put it as tier. Honestly, I think I think DH is probably above Warrior, and then Warrior's above DK, and then DK's behind that for melee wise. So I think it's definitely you have a lot of utility, Iceborne, AMZ, AMS. You have double grips, perma chains. You have insane consistent damage, insane burst damage, and you go really well with warriors. DK warrior, DK. I mean, really DK anything, but you have a lot of viable comps with it, and it's very good. Definitely, I would try it out. It could even be A tier, but I still think honestly it just does a lot of damage. If you know how to play DK and you're not, just going in there smashing buttons, if you just do your, mini burst go, right, and you do your in caps, you're gonna win a lot of these games because it does a fair amount of damage. So I'm definitely gonna keep it there. Frost DK, I'm gonna put that at B tier. It doesn't have much burst damage anymore. A DK will easily out damage a Frost, and the same thing with Frost. You need the burst damage of a Sub Rogue and Enhance. When you click your CD, same thing with Windwalker. When these 3 or 4 click CDs, they need to be doing unhealable damage because that's all they have. Same thing with Fire Mage. If they after their burst, they don't do anything. So they need a, if people only have to click a CD only on your burst, and you click your burst and they click defensives, you're not able to play the game for the next 2 minutes, and that's just too long in this meta. Because by the time 2 minutes come by, games are usually almost over by then. So, it's very unlucky. Unless you're facing like a decent rating, then it's like literally high damp games because of Residurds and Mistweavers. But next class here, trying not to talk too much, trying to just get on with the thing here. We're gonna go Shaman. I actually forgot Wrestle Shaman. Honestly, it could either be an A tier or an S tier. Honestly, if you're a good Wrestle Shaman, and just because I just don't know, I think it's a really good healer. Like when I played, if you guys look at that threes, my healer was able to, keep up with her other healer while they were doing like, if I think it honestly could be S tier. I really think it could. I think the only thing is if you're playing with bad teammates that don't know what Earthen is and they don't know how to like, do certain things, it'll make it A tier. And that's the reason I think that's the difference between a Wrestle Druid or a Mistweaver is it doesn't really matter. But as a Shaman, your Earthen is a high, like it's one of your best abilities if people know how to play against it. Like if you know how to like stand in it and play with your Shaman, it's very well. So if you're playing with good teammates and a good comp, it's definitely an S tier healer. However, at the moment, I'm going to put it at A tier because the average player is going to have a hard time playing Wrestle Shaman. One, because you need to be pretty solid to play this spec. Even you might not think it, but it definitely is it's not like a Wrestle Druid or a Mistweaver. It definitely has some type of skill to it. You still need a fake cast and do some certain things. So I'll keep it at A tier, but keep in mind if you're looking to play Wrestle Shaman, it's definitely a good time because it's not bad. It's pretty decent actually. So next class we're gonna go with Evoker. I still think this is almost an S tier healer. Honestly, I think it's way better than Wrestle Shaman. Maybe even better than Wrestle Shaman. So I don't know if I want to put it with the Wrestler because I never see Wrestle Shamans or Evokers above 1800 MMR. Like I just see literally Wrestle Druid and Mistweaver, and I see like a casual Priest every like 10 games. It's literally Wrestle Druid and Mistweaver every game, mainly Wrestle Druid because it is so good. So I'll keep Evoker at A tier, but again, if you're looking to play this spec, it's really good. If you know how to play it and you know how to set up your stuff, it's definitely a good spec. So I would definitely recommend trying it out. But we're gonna now be going with this. Now I think this is still a good spec. I think the problem is now that it doesn't literally one shot on your burst. It's literally a support class. It's literally meant to support. It's not meant to be doing unhealable damage. So just for the overall spec, I'm gonna put it as A tier, and the reason is it's a support class. Everyone's salty mainly because it doesn't literally one shot. Like the moment they give a support class unhealable damage, it makes zero sense to do that. It's if you're playing this spec, you're looking to give your teammates help. You're supporting. You're not sitting there doing unhealable damage. You're literally just helping your team. So I'm gonna keep that at an A tier. Some people might disagree, but I still think it's the right call. It's a support class. It's literally good overall. I don't know how much it got nerfed. I haven't seen many of them because probably because it got people aren't one shotting, and that's the only reason people were playing them. It's because they were doing unhealable damage. But D Evoker, same thing. You have a lot of burst potential. I don't know though if it's as good as in the A tier. I haven't seen many of these, and I think the issue is the same thing with every other burst spec. You just don't have the burst to shut out the game. Like these specs need that burst damage. Sub, Fire Mage, Windwalker, Frost, Enhance, like Arcane, all of these specs rely on burst damage. Meanwhile, when a DH can do 100k minimum a second on non-burst, and then you have these classes that can barely top 70k a second when you're in an actual arena, it's actually pretty ridiculous. So, and same thing with like Warriors and DKs and Hunters and all these other specs that can do unhealable damage the entire game without having to do anything. So it's kind of annoying and aggravating, but it is what it is. So I'm gonna put it at B tier. Same thing. I still think it has a trouble with burst. You have decent utility, but just not enough to keep you alive long enough. It's like a Boomy, except I think its burst is even worse. Because you would usually play this. You could play D Evoker with Unholy DK, but at the moment I just don't think it does enough damage. You'd be better off just playing like Demo Lock Unholy DK or like Warrior Unholy DK. You're kind of just throwing. So next class, we're gonna go with Priest. I think Priest is definitely not. It's not as good as the Wrestler Druid. It's not as good as a Mistweaver. It does have the damage, however, it does unhealable damage, and it's probably better than maybe Evoker. I don't know if it's better than Wrestler Shaman, but it's definitely good. If you know how to play Priest and you're using CDs whenever they click CDs, you have a decent amount of utility, and it's definitely a good healer to start out on. Now, I would personally rather start on Mistweaver or Wrestle Druid. It's a lot easier. You'll have a lot more fun, and you won't get countered by every other healer because Wrestle Druids will instantly beat a Priest because you're just gonna get out healed pretty much, and there's nothing you can do about it. But next healer, Holy Priest. The thing is, I don't think Holy Priest is as good as a Disc or a Wrestle Sham. So this is questionable. I think Holy Priest can be good, but I think it just doesn't have enough. Like you have no utility. You have Guardian that doesn't have any damage reduction. You have no domes. You just have Swamp and Guardian and Angel form. It's really bad. The fact that you don't have a damage like Priest has two BS's Dome, Rupture, Swamp. Like they just have unhealable CC. Or not CC damage. Meanwhile, the Holy Priest doesn't have really much damage, like anywhere near as much as a Disc. Has nowhere near as much healing nor utility. So I'm gonna put that as B tier. Definitely wouldn't recommend Holy Priest at the moment, but you know, it could very well be A tier, and maybe we'll see. It could be S tier. Who knows? It has everything. So to be fair, it could be an S tier. It's just not as good as a Resident. So I don't want to. I don't know. It's question. It can be good. It can be bad. You guys can let me know what you guys think. Does Disc Priest deserve to be an S tier with a Wrestle Druid? I don't think so, or a Mistweaver. I think both of these classes will instantly be a Priest unless the Priest and the teammate are really good and they're just getting outplayed. But now we're going to go with the good old fast Wrestle Druid, and we obviously know this is an S tier healer, if not the best healer in the game, and then Monk. It's just really good. Overall healing, insane. Once you have 2 set and 4 set, I don't know if you run 4 set, but 2 set is unhealable. Me and Kat have been playing. We played DH. Wrestler Druid, she doesn't even have 2 set, and she does unhealable healing. And then on top of that, you have Cyclones, you have CC, you have Roots for the melees. It's really good. Definitely a good spec to play. H-Bow, this is questionable. So, um, I think H-Bow is actually pretty decent. I think you have to be good at H-Bow. That's the problem. If you're a good H-Bow and you're playing with decent players, you're going to do pretty good as an H-Bow. Now, you're not going to do as good as a Resto Druid or a Mistweaver, but you're going to do overall good. Because you have a lot of utility. Double bombs, freedom, 1 minute snack. Your healing's pretty on point. It's not terrible at all. Um, I don't know though. It might be at B tier just because overall you're gonna get out healed by a lot of these specs, and since a lot of these specs are good in dampening, HPAL is not really good in dampening. Same thing with Holy Priest. I'm gonna keep it at B tier, but in certain situations, like in twos, it could be in certain situations it can be A tier, and the same thing, these can in some situations be S tier. So don't get me wrong, a lot of these classes can still be S tier, but it's overall, not just specifically in one regard. So in overall, HPAL is not the best. It's not really anywhere near a Wrestler, Mistweaver, even a Wrestler Shaman or a Disc or any of the other healers. H Priest and HPAL are kind of at the bottom of the barrel. Rat Paladin, another A tier spec. Um, you have the damage. If you're a good Rat Paladin, you have a lot of utility for your team. You don't have much healing, but you have a lot of utility and a lot of burst damage. As long as you know how to play. If you're just sitting there clicking wings and you're getting CC'd on all your wings and you don't, if you're just using your CDs, you're not gonna have fun. However, if you know how to play and you're playing, because without the melee, like if you play Ret DH in solo shuffle, because so many people are playing Warrior DK DH, you're gonna have a good time. You're gonna be playing melee cleave and smacking people in the face. So I'm gonna put it as A tier. Definitely could. I don't think it could be S tier. It just doesn't have the burst damage. If it had like it can do easily 100k, but the problem is on wings, a lot of people just use a button on wings and then they have no consistent damage. That's the difference between a class like a Warrior or a DH and a BM and all these other ones. They have consistent pressure the entire game nonstop. That's the difference between a Ret Paladin and a DH, Warrior, DK, etc. Shadow Priest, another spec that overall is decent. I still don't think it's as good as an Affliction Warlock though. Um, if you're playing Shadow Play, it can be really good. But overall, I don't think it does that good right now, honestly. I still don't think it's bad because overall you have a lot of utility for your team. You have MD. You have a lot of bleed damage. If you play with another caster, you're gonna have a good time. However, it's not as good as an Affliction Warlock. It's not as good as an LE or a Boomy, I don't think. So honestly, it could either be low A tier. I don't know if I want to put it as B tier because it's still playable, but it's like I don't know if I want to put it in with like these other specs, just because these other specs do a lot of damage, and SP doesn't really do that much damage. Like it doesn't have as much burst as it used to. So there's like I said situations where it could be A tier, but at the moment I'm gonna put it as B tier. I think it's if a class needs a little bit of a buff for it to help, it's gonna be not S tier. But by the way, we still have to get our 2 sets, our 4 sets. Some people have already got their 2 set, obviously, but once we get our full gear and once we start crafting mastery gear and all that good stuff, like when Unlimited Conquest is out, I'll do another tier once we have full gear, and we'll see how it is then. But let me know what you guys think. Obviously, I don't, do it perfectly. Sometimes there is some stuff that I mess up. Obviously, I don't know everything in the future, but for right now, I think this is fine. If you're looking to play the best of the best classes, I think these classes on the S tier is the class to play. I think everyone can agree. Maybe Affliction Warlock can even be put up here. So, because it does a lot of damage, I just don't know. Mm, I'm gonna put it up here just because of its amount of damage and how easy it is to play, and it's overall good. So I'm gonna put it here, but don't take it with a grain of salt, because it can still be A tier, and then and at this point Shadow Priest is gonna go up. I think it's not as good as an Affliction, or it might be up against. It might be a little bit below. It's low A tier. How about that? I don't want to really put it with a Dev Evoker, because at least Shadow Play is like Shadow Priest is still playable. It's just you're not literally doing unhealable burst damage the entire game. So it's not as good as an Affliction or a Destro or Demo or whatever. But let me know what you guys thought about this video. Let me know what you want to see next. Obviously, I'm trying not to be biased, so I'm trying to make sure I get everything that I can, because obviously I play Rogue, so I wouldn't just automatically put it at B tier. So I think it's in a good spot. It's still A tier. It's not bad. I think these classes are just insanely broken. So it's not like Rogue is bad. It's just that these other classes are just unbelievably broken. That's just it. So there's a lot of A tier classes that are going to be good to play. It's just the problem is there's just, these S tier classes just need a nerf because they're too overall strong. Like nobody should be doing 100k a second on non CDs. That's too much. Come on now. But hopefully you guys did enjoy this video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Let me know what you guys want to watch next. Peace, peace.